the free HTML course that you're about to watch is just a small part of our full front-end web development masterclass. So if you also want to learn CSS, Bootstrap, Font Awesome, Animate.css, and all of that, and also gain your certificate and become a certified front-end web developer, you can enjoy the fast link in the description and get your access to our full front-end web development bootcamp at a fraction of cost. Also mentionable that this course is brought up to you by the Takeoff College, the smartest alternative currently available to the traditional education. With all that being said, I'm so excited, so let's get started. Hey everyone, we are getting started with HTML as the most essential brick to the wall of programming, especially web development and web programming. So, what is HTML? HTML, as sounds like an abbreviation, is an abbreviation. An abbreviation for Hypertext Markup Language, which is HTML. As Wikipedia says, it is a markup language. And I'd like to talk about that as the language to web. So any kind of web-based program, anything related to web, wherever it is, either it's on desktop, televisions, mobile devices, laptops, whatever, anything that has any connection to web has HTML somehow included, or one kind of a markup language included, which in most cases is HTML. So HTML, as I said, can be referred to as the language of web, the language of browsers. And that is what we are going to learn in this full course. So HTML always comes with cascading style sheet, which is abbreviated to CSS, which we do have a separate course for. And the best case scenario is that you first start with HTML course, so the course that we are currently in, and afterwards you move to the CSS course, because that is a complementary tool to HTML. In many cases, you hear that a lot, that people say HTML is not a programming language. And we can say they are right and they are correct, because, as I said, HTML is a language to talk with web and to talk with computers, to talk with browsers. But in HTML, there's no analysis and there is no operation of data or something like that happening. We only have a language of speaking to the computer, and that's why people don't call it programming language in a lot of cases, because programming languages have functions, they have different kinds of commands, and they do something. HTML doesn't do anything like the other languages do. HTML is just about communicating correctly with the web. So let's get into it without no further complicated explanations. To get started with HTML, which is the exact thing that we are going to do right now, we need text editors. When I say text editors, don't think of anything complicated or, something like that. In 99% of the scenario, you already have one or a couple installed on your computer. Actually, the Notepad software we have in Windows, as it mentions here, it is a text editor, Text editors are not anything special or complicated. Actually, vice versa. Text editors are just softwares that we can access to the codes we write or the codes we have in any kind of a web page through them. But in most cases, as I said, Notepad is a text editor, which we all have and we all use. But in terms of programming and coding in HTML, we do not use it that often. And the reason to that is because Notepad is not specially designed for coding. And what do I mean by that? When you're coding with Notepad, you need to type every single letter of the code by yourself. While in most cases, that's not the case. The case is that we will get help from the software that we are using. It will actually read our brains through the parts that we write, and it will complete the code for us. Another expectation we have from text editors is debugging and giving us feedback, at least small ones, on how we are wrong in a couple lines of our code and things like that. So these are the reasons that turn us into other text editors rather than the simple Notepad we have. And we have a couple of them listed over here, as you see. This list goes to infinity, actually. I personally have worked with many of them. We have the most popular ones. We have Notepad++, as you see. We have... I can't see any of the familiar ones here. We have, for example, Atom. I don't see that. I don't know what. Here it is. We have Atom. We have many of them, actually. We have Sublime Text. If I can find it over here. Sublime Text, yes, as you see. There's many of them. We have Brackets and many other ones. And a lot of them are free, a lot of them are not. And they have different looks. They look differently, these text editors. They have different options and different tools for specific kinds of programming and coding. And there are differences to them, actually. Not many and not much, but there are differences to them. And the best one, in my opinion, in my very, very personal opinion, the best one that I love and I always use is Visual Studio Code, which is this blue software. Don't misunderstand it with Visual Studio, because that is, the purple one, That is a completely separate software by Microsoft, but this Visual Studio Code thing is the free option we have. It is very quick. It has many features, and I just personally love it, And to get it, as I said, it's free, so you don't need to pay anything for it. You just need to go to code.visualstudio.com and download it for whatever operating system you're using. The point is, I do not have it installed right now, so it's a very cool one. We are going to do it with each other. So when we are done downloading it, as you see, we have an exe file over here, .exe. All we need to do is to open it up. And as you see, this is Microsoft Visual Studio Code setup. I accept the agreement and click on Next. This is the address that it will be installed to. Next. Create program shortcut. Okay, next. Create a desktop icon. Next. And install. and it will take a couple minutes to complete the installation. I leave it checked, launch Visual Studio Code, and click Finish. This was it, as easy as that. Now we have Visual Studio Code installed, and we can get started with our first HTML project. In order to do that, in order to get started with your first ever HTML page, you will need to do a couple steps. There are ways to creating an HTML page. First one is by right-clicking, New Text Document. And for this purpose and for this way of creation, you need your file extensions on. So you need to see this .txt over here. And you can rename it to, for example, index.html. Are you sure you want to change it? Yes. And as you see, this is what we get, which is an empty web page. And now we can open it up inside our Visual Studio Code by dragging it and open. So that's it. As you see, now we have index.html opened up. Another way to do that is to click on Open Folder over here, come to Desktop, create a new folder for our project. So this is my first project. Or we can call it Hello World. This is a classic way to start off with programming, and I choose it and click Select Folder, and over here by clicking yes, I trust the authors, and over here by clicking this icon, this new file icon, we will be able to name our file index.html and have the exact same thing over here. So now we have a web page. In order to see that, we need to open it up with a browser, which I'm using Google Chrome for right now. And as you see, this is our web page, an empty one. So whatever I write over here, for example, I say, hello world. And I reload this, and as you see, I don't see any changes, because this is a very important thing to keep in mind. Every single change that you make to any kind of a project is that whenever you change the code, you need to save the file in order to be able to see the changes that it creates. And as you see, we have Hello World written over here. As easy as that. Beforehand, let me go to preferences and try to change the font size for you guys, because I think it's very small. You know what I'm saying? Settings. I say font yes, and I change it to 24. I think will be okay. Yes, or even bigger, like 26. Okay, so this is it. As you see, we just wrote something, we just typed something over here, and we saw it in the browser. But this is not going to be this easy forever. So what we are going to do in the continue to our work is that we need to behave in a frame. And that is why HTML exists. This is not actually this easy, as I said. And we have a frame. But the question that comes to mind at first is that when we can do it like this, so you can easily type anything over here, type anything over here, and save, and see the changes over here, why do we need to follow that frame? And that is a very brilliant question. But there's also a very logical answer to that question. Because in real world projects and in websites, etc., this hello world may be very different with this type anything over here. And we need to specify those differences. Wherever we have an image, we need to specify what kind of an image it is and what is this image talking about. Whenever we have a link, we need to specify the URL to that link, the purpose to that link, and the anchor to that link. Whenever we have headings, we need to specify what they are, how important they are. Whenever we have a quotation, we need to specify that. Whenever we have a list, we need to specify that. And all of that make this kind of typing impossible when we are working on real world projects. And that's why HTML is created. That's why we have frames in web. In order to get started, you need to be familiar with a couple concepts. The first one is tags. So what are tags? HTML is basically based on these tags we're talking about. So these tags are those frames that I just mentioned. And we have two major kinds of tags. One of them are like this. You open them up with this little sign we have, and you type the tag name inside of that. You close it like this, and it also gets a closing tag. So this is called the opening and this is called the closing. And this is the structure to the tags we have. And inside of these tags, we may have other tags, or we may have a couple contents, settings, etc. So this is the first look that we can get in HTML from a tag. And we also have tags without closing. So how they work is that they actually look like this. So they are themselves and themselves only, because they do not need to contain anything between them, and they cannot contain anything between them, and that's impossible for them. So they do not have an opening or closing. They are only and only themselves. So these are the two main kinds of tags that we have. A couple of tags that we mentioned further in the course are like this, and some of them are like this. And we are going to mention them whenever we are working with them. So this is what we call a tag. And this is how HTML is based on. Another important thing to be familiar with is attributes. What are attributes? Inside the tags that we have, we may have certain settings for each one. And we do those settings with the attributes they offer us. Attributes is like this. So you have the attribute name or whatever. You have an equal. What I'm teaching you is called the structure. So you're learning the foundations of how HTML basically works. So you have this attribute name over here. You have equal and you have two double quotations which you can use to include the data inside that. We also can have attributes for these kind of tags, so they will be like this. Attribute equals to data. We never ever have attributes for the closing parts of these kinds of tags. This is another important thing to keep in mind. So whenever we're talking about attributes, we mean something like this or something like this. That's it. Another thing to mention is that this kind of single isolated tag that you see doesn't always necessarily have to have this backslash, or I think it's slash, I believe. Whatever it is, we don't always need that, especially in HTML5. We can just not mention that and everything will work correctly. But the point here is that we still do not need and do not have to use any closing for them. That's also important. And that's it. Let's get started with the default tags that every single HTML page and every single web page in the world has to include. If you type HTML5 like this in VS Code, in Visual Studio Code, you will get this entire code written for you over here. These are the default tags. These are the base tags, the foundation tags of an HTML page. So first of all, over here, as you see, we have this doctype HTML thing, which introduces our HTML page to the browser. So it says that this page is written in HTML and is necessary, by the way. And below that, as you see, we have a tag called HTML. HTML does contain a closing, as you see, and does contain an attribute of lang, which is the language that our page is on, and as you see, is set to EN or English. Inside HTML, as you see, we have two other important tags, which are head and body. We must, in every single project that we have, in every single web page that we're working on, we must include all of these. So keep that in mind. We have head, which is for the settings to our web page, and we have body, which is the content of our web page. So here, as you see, in head, we have a couple meta tags, which are for settings, as I said, of our web page. We have a title, which I can change to Hello World. And if I save, as you see here, we have index.html, but if I reload it, here will change to Hello World. Very cool one, right? Yes. What else do we have? We have body, and inside body, we are just getting started with the HTML tags that we have for our web page's content. Because I mentioned it earlier, I would love to get started with a heading. And how we do that is by including an H1 tag inside our web page. So H1 is heading 1, is the most important title in our web page, you know. And I type hello world over here, save, come back, and this is what we get, as you see. Important to mention, as you see, I always come to this file and click save. We also can use Ctrl S, which is basically the pro version of you. So from now, start practicing to use Control S instead of coming here and pressing it. So whenever I make any changes, I won't mention it further, but whenever I make any changes, know that I am pressing Control S consistently after any difference I make in the page. So this is what we get, as you see, with the h1 tag. I also can include something here. But the question that comes to mind is that why h1? Do we have like h2 or something? Yes, we do. We have 6 types of headings, basically. The first one is heading 1, which is h1. I'll tell you the difference in a couple minutes later, just wait for it. We also have h2, heading 2. They are 6. So we have heading 3. We have heading 4. We have heading 5. And eventually we have, heading 6. So, as you see, they are different from each other. And the difference that you can recognize right now is their size, right? So h1 is the biggest one, h2 smaller, 3 smaller, 4 smaller, 5 smaller, and h6 is the smallest one. So is it just it? Actually not. Actually, it even is not it at all, This is not the difference, because I know that you're not familiar with it, but further you'll learn CSS, and in CSS you will understand that it is easy, the easiest thing in the world, to make an h6 bigger than an h1, or make h1 smaller than an h6. So the size doesn't matter here. What matters most is the importance of them. So whenever we are reading an article or looking at the newspapers, you will recognize these h1s, h2s, h3s in those books, in those articles, in those booklets that you study. There always are these difference in levels of headings due to their importance. And there are a couple very important notes to be mentioned and to be known. The first one that I want you to learn right now, right here, is that h1 is only 1 in the page. What do I mean by that? It doesn't show you an error or something if you have 2 h1s in a page. So for example, I add another h1 and say this is my second h1. And as you see, there's no problem with it. It's still working. But when it comes to search engine optimization, which is a very, very important thing, and when it comes to real world projects, again, h1s in a single page can only be 1, 1, and 1. We cannot exclude h1 from our page professionally. We cannot exclude h1 from our page, and we must not use more than 1 h1s in a page. So h1 has to exist, and h1 is only 1, which is the main title, the main subject of our page, and it is about what this page is about. So this was h1. Then we can have unlimited h2s, unlimited h3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, and we can exclude many of them. Like we can only have 1 h1 and that's perfectly fine. We can have a couple of H2s and no H3, 4, 5, 6s if not needed, you know? There's no problem. The only important thing to keep in mind is that H1 has to exist and has to be one only. After headings, we have paragraphs, which we include with the tag P. So as you see, I type lorem, for example, and press enter. This VS Code will generate me a test text by itself. So if I reload it over here, as you see, this is how a paragraph looks like. We can have unlimited text in it, and we can have many of these paragraph tags inside our web page. So as you see, this is exactly the way that they will look like. Inside paragraph, there are a couple text formatting tags that we can use in order to specify the importance to different parts of our text, of our paragraph. One of them is bolding a specific part. So for example, I want to bold this dollar or whatever it is. However, it's red. I don't know, you know. I think it's in Spanish or something. So in order to do that, we have a formatting tag called B, which is about making things bold. So I bring this word, whatever it is, inside this B tag, and as you see, it will be bold. You see, it has a difference with the rest of the text. We also have strong. So what strong does is basically exactly the same as bold. I mean B, you know. So these two tags are both formatting tags and are both about bolding a part of our text. And this is the effect they have, as you see. We also can make a part of our text italic. How we do that is by using the tag I. And as you see here, it will make the part that we specified italic. There's also another tag for doing the same thing, which is EM. And as you see, EM does exactly the same as the I tag does. So these four are formatting tags. We also have other forms of formatting tags, which are, for example, mark. What mark does is highlighting a part of our text due to its importance or whatever. We can have the U tag, which is basically about underlining a specific part of the text. We have the small tag. These are all for formatting. We have the small tag, which makes a specific part of our text smaller. As you see, the error got smaller. We have, let me include two parentheses here to showcase the change better. Yes. We have the DEL text, which will make a text deleted or something. As you see, it will draw a line over the text, word, sentence, or anything like that we include inside it. We also have INS, which will make our text an inserted text. So this basically functions just like the underline tag does, you know? So it underlines a text to highlight its importance. We also have superscript and subscript So as you see, we can access them by SUB and SUP tags. And as you see, a subscript text is like this, and a superscripted text is like this. So it will go and stay upper or lower than the actual lines that we have in order to showcase something. For example, an abbreviation, or a mathematical equation or anything like that, that would require some kind of work or formatting. We also can include lists in our HTML pages. So we basically do have two kinds of lists. If you have been through our Microsoft Word course or anything like that, you're familiar with them. We have numbered lists, which in HTML are OL and LI. And we have bullet lists, which in HTML are UL and LI. So as you see, I can use the OL to introduce that I am starting and finishing a list, a numbered list, and LIs are the items to my list. So I can say item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, and as you see, I will have a numbered list included in my web page. I also can use a bullet one, so I can pretty much copy all these by Control C and Control V here. So as you see, I'm having the bullet list of mine placed like this, as easy as that. So these are lists in HTML. We also have the tag block quote, which is about any kind of quotation we're making from a specific person or something. And as you see, in terms of formatting, it makes our text stand a little bit further than our actual paragraphs and stuff. And as you see, this also can be included as a formatting tag. While we're still in texts, another tag that is used very often is BR. So let me show you something. For example, I want to make a huge white space between these two paragraphs of mine. So I press enter, and as you see, I have a lot of white space over here. So I save, and when I come here and reload, as you see, no changes are made. This is because in HTML, the space between quotes doesn't matter at all. So in order to show the line break or a white space or something like that, you need to use its own tag. You know what I'm saying? So the tag we have for line breaks is BR. I can write it multiple times, and as you see, the BR tag is the kind that does not require and does not have an end tag, an ending. So this is single and isolated. So as I reload, as you see, I have exactly what I wanted. This is BR. We also have HR, which is more about creating a line that separates different parts of our web page from each other. HR is important as well, and works just like BR does in terms of formatting and style and things like that. So we've come so far. Now we want to add images to our HTML project. In order to do that, first we need an image, as you know. So I can search for whatever image I'm looking for. So for example, I say UK flag. And as you see, I get many of them. So I want to include one of them inside my web page. So what I do is basically I come choose one, and what I need from that is the link, is the URL to that image. So I right click and click on copy image address. So if I paste the image address and go, as you see, this is what I get. So this URL brings me directly to the image, and I can use it as the URL to that image. So I want to, for example, include this image over here inside my HTML page. In order to do that, I can use the img tag. So img tag, as you see, doesn't have an ending and is just like br and hr. So does not require and does not have an ending tag at all. As you see, it has, and it comes with two attributes. The first one is src, which is the required attribute to any image tag. In src, I can paste the URL that I just copied. And as you see, if I reload, this image is included over here. Now imagine that I do not want an image from the internet or a foreign server. So I want the image to be inside my computer, inside my PC. So let's do that. I say save image as desktop, hello world, and I save it as the flag. Save. So as you see, now I have a flag.webp. It can be anything. It doesn't matter. It can be JPG. It can be PNG. You know what I'm saying? And now I have it inside my Explorer, as you see, inside the folder of my project. And this is another way that I can source different images or objects of my website. I can bring them here inside the project, the folder of the project, and use their name .webp, and that's it. So I will have the same thing over here, but if I right click and click on open image in new tab, as you see, this is loading the image from my own computer. One thing we can do is that we can organize this image. So we can make folders over here and call it images. So it will be about my images only. I can drag this file into the folder. I can move it. And then, as you see, this will not be loaded because this sourcing is not valid anymore. In order to make it valid, we need to include the name of the folder at the beginning of it. So what we basically do whenever we are linking to an object is that we consider that we are in index.html and we tell the code, we tell the src the exact road and the exact address that it needs to take in order to get to the image. Another attribute to the image tag, as you see, is alt. Alt is not necessary, but also very important. As you see, it has an explanation to it. So VS Code says this attribute defines an alternative text description of the image. So where is it used? It basically has two kinds of usage. First one is that if the image is not loaded, is broken, or for whatever reason, the image is not loaded. So the reason can be that the image is missed inside your server, or the user's internet or anything like that crashes and the image is not loaded. The text you place over here will be shown instead of the image. So we will say the United Kingdom flag. And as you see, nothing is shown over here, but if I change the URL, for example, as you see, this will show the alternative text instead. So this is the first usage of it. Also, for the browsers of people with disabilities or something like that, people that cannot see, the browser will read the alternative text instead of the image itself. Another importance of the alternative text is about SEO and search engine optimization again, because Google and same search engines will index your images, index your website content, index your media, index everything. And whenever they are indexing images from your website, what they will look in order to get the explanation to that image will be this alternative text. So when I search for UK flag, as you see, this is what it shows us. These are images with titles. So where this title comes from is the alternative text that we give our IMG tag. This is another reason that why alternative tag, the alt attribute, is very, very important and necessary. The next tag that I want to talk about is one of a kind that we have never talked about so far, and is div. So div is a kind of a special tag, and the reason to that is that div is nothing but a container. Div actually separates our web page into different parts and different sections. And as you see, if I save and reload, this is where my div was placed in. But as you see, you cannot see it. It does not make any changes in terms of looks or something. Div is all about accessibility, internal cleanness of code, and internal communications of HTML with CSS and JavaScript. And div doesn't actually do that much, but the main functionality of div, as I said, is dividing our page into different parts, and it works like something like grouping or something, you know. For example, this paragraph with these lists are a group of my contents plus this block code. So I cut them all and put them all inside a div. And this is how we can have this part of our page grouped. And this is all for division and functions as a container. A very important and cool point to mention over here, as you see, I placed my div, but there's some messy code over here, as you see. So we have div. This paragraph is one step ahead of the div, but this OL is just where the div is. So in order to make that clean, what Visual Studio Code offers is Alt-Shift-F. And whenever you press that, as you see, the formatting of the text of the code, will be way cleaner. And as you see, you will get a clean, neat code from Visual Studio. So this is, as you see, what div does, and this is what div is all about. We'll have more things to do with it as we go further. Another important tag that we have in HTML is the span tag. Span is, again, some kind of a container, but morely used for texts. And this is my span. As you see, I included it over here under my headlines. The main difference between P and span is that P or paragraph is about an entire paragraph, which will take the lines that it is located in. But span will only take as much space as the text inside it take. So if I add another span over here and say this is my second span, as you see, these two will stick together because they won't take no more space than they need. But if I do the same with paragraph, so this is my paragraph, and this is my second paragraph, these two will be completely separated. Although all of these attributes and characteristics are controllable and changeable in CSS, but these are the primary characteristics to each of these tags that we are mentioning and we are using. So this was span. The next thing we are going to talk about is forms, which are also a very important part when it comes to the foundations of web, as they are our primary source of communication with the users that we have inside our websites or applications. So forms are started with this parent tag of form, which we always use. It has an action attribute, which is about the functionality and backend development. So we do not have to do anything with it, at least right now, you know what I'm saying? So we leave it empty. And inside this form tag, we have input, which is very, very important. So as you see, input tag doesn't have no closings, is a single isolated tag, just like BR, IMG, and same tags were. And inside of it, we have a type attribute, which is necessary and required. And as you see here, it has written text. So this is an average input that we have. We can enter text inside it. And then what we will need is a button to submit all this data. So we can have an input with a type submit. And as you see, this will submit our form to the server. Inside of the form tag, we can have plenty of different types of inputs. So we have input text, we can have input number, which will only and only take numbers. So if I try to type anything inside it, you can see that it gets no values. But if I type numbers, this will be filled with it, you know. Let me use BRs in order to keep it clean. Yes. Another important type that we have is checkbox, which is all about a checkbox, as you see, just like this, and we can either check or uncheck it. And when it comes to inputs, any kinds of inputs that we are using, we have a label for them. So we can have a label for them. And this label, as it says itself, will label them inputs. So I can say full name, you know, and this will specify what I want in this input of mine. And here, as you see, it says for. So for is about connecting this label with the input that it is related to. And how we do that is by giving the input an ID. So ID is an attribute which has to be unique, and we'll name our tag. So I call it full name. And as you see, I can say for full name. And if I reload, this is what will happen. How can you understand that the label is connected to the input? Whenever you click the label and the input is selected, you will be sure that they both are connected with each other. So I can even include a break over here, as you see. BR. So we also do have labels for checkboxes, which is probably an essential one. So we do have a checkbox but we have not specified what the checkbox is about. So now what we can do is we can give it an ID. For example, I say accept the ID and a label for accept. And inside the label, for example, I say I accept the terms. And now, as you see, we will have this explanation, which will be connected to our checkbox, and the user can either check or uncheck by clicking on it. Along with checkboxes, we also have radio buttons, so it will be input type radio. As they look very similar to checkboxes, but radio buttons are very important. And the importance to them is that whenever we have a checkbox, it can either be checked or unchecked. But whenever we have a radio button, or a couple of them, I'd better say, one of them must be checked, and no more than one of them, or no less than one of them can be checked. For example, we have a gender part inside our form. So I say label for male. So I give it an ID and I say male, and inside of it I say male. I copy this one and now I say female. So as you see, you only can choose one of them. But now a very cool thing that happened was that I could choose both. And that's why I have not specified the area for them. So how do we do that? Whenever we have radio buttons, the necessary thing that we do is naming them. So I say name, and for example, I say gender or something like that. And I give this name to both inputs. And now, as you see, these two are connected and only one of them can be selected. So this was about radio buttons. We also have email, which is another kind of a text, but is only for emails. So you set the type to email and you will get it as I will do. So as you see, if I enter something which is not an email and try to submit the form, it says that please include an @ in the email address, So this will format the input content for us automatically. Another kind of an input that we have is date, which will look like this. As you see, we'll get a special day from us. The date can also be a month or a year one. So how these work is that they require the person, the user, to only specify a year or a month inside the input. Sorry, I think we do not have any year thing. It was week, yes. So we can specify weeks, as you see, or years, or a special date, We also have the type password. So what it will do is that, as you see, it will hide the characters that we enter inside the input. We also have inputs with the type file. So file is, as it says, basically for uploading things. It says no chosen file, so we can click on choose file and choose a file from our computer. We also have image as the input type. So it will only get an image from us. We also have color, which can be separated to a different category. As you see, this is what it will give us. So this will get a certain color inside the form from our user whenever it's needed. We also have the input search. There's plenty of them. If you just Google about it, or the file that you will get with this lesson inside the Takeoff College. So there will be attachments. One of the attachments will be a cheat sheet. So the cheat sheet will include all the tags that I have mentioned or I have missed in the course, all of them, inside a PDF file, which you can always have whenever you're coding. So what was it? It was about search, yes. The primary characteristic of it is this close button, which will clear the input for us whenever we click it. We also have input hidden. So it's basically hidden. We cannot see it. And this kind of an input, if you see, I changed this search. So if I reload, as you see, this is hidden. So this hidden input will be used only in backend programming stuff whenever we want to keep a data, but not show it, you know. We will use this input hidden. And that's basically it. We also have time. I can include it here. So the type time will be something like this. We can select a special hour and minute inside it. So this is it. These are form inputs. There also are very important attributes that can be applied to all of these inputs with different types that we mentioned. And these attributes are, one of them, for example, is required. So what required does, sorry, not for the label, for the input. So what the required does is that if we click submit, as you see, it will say that please fill out this field. So this will make this field required, as you see. Another attribute we have is value, which will allow us to give a certain value, a default value to this. So as you see, the value will be pasted here. We have placeholder, which is different from the value. So value will be here, and if I add anything, it will be added to the default value. But placeholder is just a shadow, as you see, and just an example. So if I type anything, that will be gone. So this is placeholder. We also can have read only. So read only will make the input uneditable. So as you see, whatever try I make to change it or remove it or something, I can't do anything. I just can copy what it is and read it. So this is read only input. And these are basically this. This is all about, this is what forms are all about in HyperText Markup Language. The next important tag that we have is the anchor tag. So anchor will include either text or anything else. You know what I'm saying? So anchor is all about linking. So in order to type it, we need to use the A tag, which is the first letter of anchor. And A tag will have a closing. It will have value. So I say click me, for example. This is the value I put inside it. and has a necessary attribute, which is href, which is required for the A tag. And here we will place the link that we want to go to. For example, I say https://google.com. So as you see, I will have a click me here, which is a link. So this is exactly what Anchor does. We have an additional attribute to this tag, which is target, and can be placed, can be valued with underlined blank. So what it will do is that whenever we click on it, it will open the link in a new tab for us. So that's what it does. Another important part about this tag is that, as I said, we can include anything inside it. So I can put this image of mine inside an A tag and link this to Google as well. And as you see, what I'll have is an image which will be linked. And whenever I click on this British flag, I will be headed to google.com. This was also important to mention. The next important element that we want to talk about is tables. Tables are essential when it comes to showcasing data. And in HTML, we do have them as well. So we have a parent tag as table that we use to get started with building the table we want. So if I write this table over here and come to my page, as you see, nothing is changed yet. Beforehand, let me add some bricks over here to highlight my table and add an H2 here. Table. So under this, we will have our table. So inside this parent tag, we will need to include a couple of tags. First of all, we have TR. So HTML tables start with the rows rather than columns. I think in most cases, tables are this. So we have rows, then inside rows, we have columns. So we have TR for every row that we want to create. And I use TH, which is the abbreviation for table heading. And I can say, for example, name, add another TH and say phone number, and add another TH and say company, for example. So if I save and reload, as you see, we have them written like this. Nothing special happened yet. So I add another table row, and this time, instead of TH, I use TD, because TH was only for headings. And my first data will be Nima Ghasemi, my own name. There will be a phone number, so it will be up +1 1 1 on 1 1 on 1 1 1 1, for example, And we also will have another TD for the company as the Takeoff College. So as you see, this is what I get as a table. We can include unlimited data just like that. So we have another TR, and inside that TD, this one is, for example, Brian Wilson, TD +1 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2, and we have TD. For example, I say Microsoft. And this is how we can have tables, as easy as that. A question that may come to your mind is that why does it look like this? Why is the table this empty? And this is actually a cool point. In order to add borders to these tables, we need to include CSS to specify the special looks and styles that we want to have for our tables, etc. But the default tables in HTML without CSS will look exactly like this, nothing more. So this is about tables. Another important point to mention here is that when we are trying to add some exception cells inside our table, that's very important. So for example, let's say that one of them, the next one I want to add, for example, doesn't have a phone number and only has a name and a company. So I say TD Michael Johnson. And I say the company is IKEA, for example. As you see, the Johnson will be in the name column and IKEA is here. So the company has nothing, but we didn't want that. We wanted the phone number to be empty. In order to do that, we will introduce two new concepts as column span and row span. Column span and row span is about when we are trying to take an extra column, 2 extra columns, 3 extra columns, or extra rows for one particular cell. And we do that by adding attributes to that particular cell. So for example, here, I want Michael Johnson to also take the column phone number for me. So I want the column span of Michael Johnson to be 2 instead of 1. So the default of column span or col span, as you see, this is how it's written, is 1. 1 is the default. I want it to be 2. And as you see, if I reload, this is what we will get. This is exactly like we want it, right? Yes. So this is how they work. We also have row span. I can make it, for example, 4. And what will happen is that for the next 4 TRs, so first TR, second TR, sorry, for the next 3 TRs that I add, IKEA will, no, Michael Johnson will stay the same and we'll take them. So as you see, this is what I mean by that. This is row span. So this is a row span of 4 and a column span of 2. And this is also essential and critical when it comes to tables in HTML. Now, if you remember div and what it was and what it did, we also have other tags that do the same, and they are called semantic tags. So what they do is basically they exist and that's it, you know? They don't add anything to our page. They don't add any kind of value in the appearance side or in the functionality. They just exist, and their existence may help us in very small ways. But the difference between these tags and div is that div can always be used everywhere for making any kind of sections or something. But these semantic tags are specialized. And one of them, for example, is header. So header is very different from head. I want you to understand that. Head is a required, essential tag for our page, but header is a semantic tag. And we put header content of our web page, for example, the navigation menu, the logo, whatever it is over there inside the header. We have footer, just like header. We have tags of section, as you see. We have a side for sidebars. And as you see, whenever I hover any of them, the explanation says that, for example, the header element represents introductory content for its nearest ancestor sectioning content or sectioning root element. So header typically contains a group of filon, something, negotiable aids. Yes. So all of these kinds of tags don't do anything. They just exist, and we call them semantic tags, just like div. But div is repeated times and times and times, but header and footer are mostly, for example, I say 99% of times, header and footer are only mentioned once. A site maybe once or twice per web page. Section is unlimited, just like div. But as I said, all of them are semantic and they don't offer any kind of special functionality or something like that if we want to go through them in a beginner level. We also have media, which are very important. So whenever we have media, it is either an audio or a video. And it is either located in our own PC, in our own computer, in our own device, or we are embedding it from an outer source. So let's do them. Let's do all of them one by one. So I have this MP3 file, as you see. It's a song, the thank you song, which is a popular one. It's basically, my tea's gone cold, I wonder why, got out of bed at all, something like that. So we got it, and just like the image, just like what we did with the image, we need to bring it to the root folder of our project. We can add folders here, so I can say audios or something like that for my track. Sorry, I did it with the page. It was a mistake. So I'll drag my track to the audios, and I can access that by a tag called audio. So audio tag has a beginning and has an end, has a closing as well. And it will have an src attribute, just like the img tag did, the image tag, if you remember. And we need to address. So I say, go to the folder audios, and this is my track. So I come over here, and as you see, I see nothing. Nothing is added. Yes. Why? The reason to that is because the track is already included in the page, but we have not specified any kind of usage for it. So we can make it a background music which plays automatically whenever we open the window or something, or we can give it controllers. So that's what I want to do. I add the attribute controls at the end of it. So this will give me a player, as you see, and I can easily play my song, manage the audio, the volume of it, and anything we want from a player. We even have playback speed, as you see, that we can use. So this is how we can add audios to our page. We also have the attribute loop, which will basically, for example, let's see what happens whenever the audio is finished. So now it's about to end, and it is ended. And as you see, this is gone. The audio is finished and done. But if I add the loop attribute to the audio tag, and if I reload and play it again, go to the end of it, so as you see, this is ending and this is restarting. So we have a loop over here. And yes, we also can have video, and inside video we can have, it's basically the same. We need to introduce our video by linking to it, just like what we did with the MP3 file. I don't have a video right now, a video file accessible to do it with, but the formats, the acceptable formats, I think are those common video formats like MP4, MKV or something, you know, and they need to be included in this folder, just like what we did with the sound, with the audio file, and we need to address to it. And again, very, very important, the controls thing is still applicable to video. So if you add a video to your page but do not include the controls attribute, you will not be able to play it, you will not be able to watch it, and you will not be able to access it the way you probably would like to. Another way that we can include things inside our web page is by embedding them. So let me search for London, YouTube, walking in London, probably, or something like that, and find a video that I want to include. This will probably be what I want. Yes, so as you see, I am currently inside a YouTube video which I want to add into my web page. So in order to do that, all I need to do is to click share, and I need to embed it. So click on embed, and as you see, this will provide me with a certain iframe tag which I can use. We have certain specifications and settings, as you see, that we can set for the video that we are taking. We can, for example, choose a specific time for where the video in our website we want to get started. So we can give it a time from the video. Show player controls, or if you uncheck it, as you see, we won't have the bar over here, the navigation bar, the time bar or something like that. We also have enable privacy enhanced mode, which has more explanations over here. Whatever. So you set everything to however and whatever you want. So I, for example, want to keep the controls and everything. And next I click on copy. And now I can come to my web page and paste the code I just copied. So I press Alt, Shift, and F in order to clean my code. And I reload it. And as you see, this is what we get. Okay, I think there are problems with this specific video, but this is basically how we do it with HTML. So we embed videos from external sources like YouTube and same platforms, and that's how we can include the videos from those platforms inside our web page. So the last thing I want to talk about in this lesson of HTML essentials is HTML comments. Beforehand, let me tell you what comments actually are. So whenever inside your code you wanted to type anything, to add any kind of notes or something for your future self or any future developers that are going to work on the code, we will have comments. So comments will make our codes cleaner, will increase the readability for the developers, and we'll do all these beneficial activities for us. We'll have all these benefits for us. In order to include comments in HTML, all you need to do is that you need to come over and use a structure very similar to what we have in our HTML tags. So it is something like this. We have open, close, 2 hyphens in each part, in each side, and we have this sign of emotion, or whatever you call it. And inside of this, as you see, its color has turned to green, and whatever I write here will not be shown or have any kind of direct or indirect effect inside the project. And this will only be comments for myself or any other teammates of mine or any other further developers that are going to work on it and work with it. And commenting is a skill itself. The structures of commenting, what should you comment, what shouldn't you comment, how should you do that in order to keep your code clean. Special kinds of commenting may be added to your sign as a developer. So people may recognize, other developers may recognize your code only with your comments or something like that, it may be your signature, the way you comment and the way you behave towards it. As I said, it is not at all an effective or even beneficial part to the functionality of your code, but in development, it will speed up your work in many cases and in many places, as it will be further explanations and documentations for any further changes that are going to happen to your web project. So that was about HTML commenting. And that is all you needed to learn in order to know HTML, know what it is, and know how to work with it. So from now, this course will only include updates which are project-based, which is very, very important, because I believe that projects are the only actual way to learn and to get professional. And that's why we are offering real-world projects inside the Takeoff College. And with watching the next sections and practicing the projects that we are doing inside them, you will be able to obtain the highest levels to this skill that we talked about in this lesson and in this session. Such a pleasure to have you here. I hope it helps you, and stay tuned for the next chapters.